have a spectacular, stellar guest joining us from Alexandria in Egypt, Tarek El Kady. He's the founder of Alex Angels, Mediterranean Angels. He's the founder of Techne Summit, which is one of the largest tech conferences in Egypt and Croatia now. And he also runs a marketing agency, a digital agency called Marcade. So thank you so much, Tarek. You've got so much, so many insights to share with us that I'm super excited.
My pleasure, Valentina. You know how I'm a big fan of what you're doing and always happy to be with you. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. So I guess the first thing, since we are in quarantine, we're all working from home. How has the situation been there in Alexandria? How has it been with your several teams which you work with?
So initially when things started to evolve, we started, trying to work on rotations so that we have less people. We're still trying to go to the office as much as we have to go, but we are,
Mhm.
working from home. Most of the people, the teams are working in Cairo and other countries. They're staying there. Moms with kids are, homeschooled now, so they're working from home. So, things are, we're trying to hang in there and adapt as everyone else. But it's working out until now. Working out.
It's working out, alhamdulillah. So tell me a little bit about what you're seeing and what you're hearing in conversations with angel investors in both your network in the Mediterranean with Alex Angels. Um, what is the main concern? What's their outlook towards investments in the coming months?
So the initial thing is with investment in general is that all the investors are looking into their portfolios. They're looking at the startups that they have invested in, and they're coming back with all the problems because everyone's in big problem, not just the people who are affected negatively, also people who are affected positively because they have a surge in their services. They cannot know how to cope with that. They don't know how to, work with all the lockdowns. The people are still afraid. So all the companies have different kinds of problems, and that's why all the investors are working on trying to solve these problems before looking into any other deals. And this is the number one concern. And other companies that are affected, badly, which is anyone in tourism, anyone in let's say also events, stuff like that, that used to be on ground and had physical interactions, are the ones that all the investors are looking in to see what kind of pivoting they can do, what kind of sustainability they can have. So all the investors want to keep their portfolios alive, and if they're going to do any investments, they would be mainly in their portfolios as stage one. As things start to easing up and we have a better outlook and less uncertainty, there would be opportunities for investment in new companies. And we are very optimistic in Alex Angels. And we had our last pitch event on Saturday, last Saturday, and we are looking into deals. So we're still looking into our old portfolio companies and seeing how we can help them, not just necessarily by investing in further rounds, but also by everyone needs to stay in a good mental health, needs advice, needs mentorship. It's a new thing for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not just the startups, but it's also for the investors, for the whole world. We're on that together, so we need to come together and try to come up with solutions.
Yeah, yeah. 2 days ago, we were talking to one of the accelerators from Silicon Valley, the Berkeley Skydeck.
Yeah.
And one of their principals, Brian Bordley, was saying that, it is expected that valuations are going to drop. Do you see the same happening in Egypt and the Middle East in the coming months, in the coming period?
Yeah. So yeah, we were also. I was speaking to David Rose a couple of days ago, and valuation just got halved in the U.S. So I want to look at this not as an opportunity because it's you cannot say it's an opportunity. People are dying. This is serious, and we cannot take these things as opportunities. We need to find solutions, and there's a lot of empathy there. So uh, the reason for the valuations got halved in the U.S. and they are going down anyhow because startups need to raise funds to survive. And when you put it on the table for the investors with less valuation, it becomes more tempting. But the thing is, if you look at the US and you look at Europe and you look at the Middle East, there's three different geographical entities, and they have their own problems and issues. So if you put the US on the top of the list, you look at the investment entities having several companies that have invested in. So they have a portfolio of 70, 100 companies each entity, and they have 100 problems to solve. Europe might be a little bit less. Middle East, of course, is much less than that. Of course, it depends on the entity. But when you have less problems, you have more times to look at the opportunities that can come out from this pandemic. And if you look at big companies that are here today, like Uber, like Dropbox, and several others, they actually started in 2008, where it was one of the biggest crises that happened, the financial crisis back then, and they started at that time. So with what they say, with challenges there are opportunities, and with bigger challenges there are bigger opportunities for startups to solve real problems. But then again, to answer your question regarding the valuation, I think that the valuations in the region where are going to go down, of course, but I'm not going to say that they're going to go down below how they should be. They would
Mhm.
be more realistic because things were really inflated, and there was a lot of money that's being spent, and a lot of startups are coming, and a lot of valuations that are big, and everyone wants to have a higher valuation, but it was too overrated. So I think now they're going to be realistic. uh, that's what I'm seeing now, but we're not stopping. We had deals that we started discussing and negotiated a while ago,
Mhm.
and we actually closed them these days, and we're going to be announcing a couple of deals soon. So we are working with our portfolios to do follow-on funding, and with the commitments, we're honoring our words, we're honoring our commitments to the startups that we are working with, and as much as possible we're here to give them the first call and first decision making and whatever they want to do with their ventures.
That's really good to hear. Do you think the scene is going to change in terms of pitching events? Right, you were just mentioning a pitching event. Do you think we're going to see more online pitching events?
Yeah, we had our pitch event on Saturday, and I know that there are a couple coming up from other angel networks and other accelerators. Uh, I think things need to keep on moving. We should not stop and wait because there's a lot of uncertainty. It's hard. There's less online events are not as engaging and
Yeah.
not, but there's also good things happening with online events. You can look at the pros. You can look at lowering the cost of the travel, lowering the cost of the F&B, lowering the cost of several things. The capacity, you can have more people attend. So there are good things, but we need to work on it. It's like it's something new, and we need to adapt for that. But I think that a lot of events are will be happening, and people who are still hesitant need to take that step, try it out, and see how it works for them.
Right, right. What changes in terms of what the investor looks at? Right, you're in a pitching event, and you generally look at certain things, right? Um, are you assessing startups differently now? Are you going to start, or are investors going to start, thinking about how startups tackled the crisis, what measures they took? Is that going to come into consideration?
So I think the main change, it's too early to say that have a big picture painted for that, but
Mm-hmm.
from the initial findings, everyone agrees that the bar is going to be raised in order to make a decision if you're going to invest or not. So it's going to be a lot tougher. The teams need to be more resilient. They need to be coming up with brighter solutions, working together. Their products or services need to be addressing, of course they need to be addressing real problems, or providing better solutions, faster, more efficient. But the benchmarks are going to be higher, this is for sure. But also there are things that they had a surge in what's happening now, and we have some of our portfolio companies that have witnessed that, and we're looking into how to support. So we look at startups saying, okay, we want to pivot and we want to change our business models. So what we say is, if this change is going to be a sustainable change
Mm-hmm.
after this is over,
Mm-hmm.
then and it's going to consume a lot of resources, then you
Mm-hmm.
can consider that. But my advice, if you want to change your business model, you want to pivot, and this is going to consume a lot of resources, it's not advisable to do it,
Right.
because it's, if it's a temporary thing, of course. But if it's a sustainable thing and you will have something that post pandemic you will do that, then yeah, you can go ahead. Because people who are already, ready for what's happening now, and they're already digital, they have everything, they're doing a good job now, and they're, adapting. But in order for you to sit down and plan and, try to come up with something to cope, you won't be fast enough. And unless you're doing it, of course, for sustainable, for post pandemic sustainability.
Right, right. Um, what's going to happen with the projections entrepreneurs have to do in this context? How should they? What would you advise them? To change or to kind of adapt in that sense.
In terms of revenues,
Yeah,
revenue projections.
projections exactly.
So the thing is that in most of the projections, they are projections, and most of them are, I wouldn't say not realistic, but most of them are very ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the main conflict between an investor and the startup. You
Mm-hmm.
see that the startup wants to have the highest valuation possible for his startup, and the investor wants to have the best deal, and they want the lowest valuation to get a better opportunity. In reality, it's in between.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as low and not as high. And if you're looking at projections, right now we cannot really tell what's going to happen. We don't know definitely whether this is going to take a long time or a short time. It takes whatever it takes. But post this period, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things are going to change. Already, we're seeing a lot of change in consumer behavior in different sectors. We're seeing people respond differently. We're seeing surges in different areas. A lot of investors in the down the path and higher valuations are holding back. Angels are the people who are usually act faster when things start being more comfortable, so they would act faster. Right now, they are excited. A lot of people actually are looking into angel investing now as a different asset class in a different way than they used to look at it before. So a lot of things are changing, and the projections in both
Mm-hmm.
investors and entrepreneurs are going to change for sure.
That's very interesting. Now, we have a question from one of our listeners. By the way, everyone who's watching, if you guys have questions, please type them in the comments. We're going to ask Tarek. But one of us that got us earlier was how can they pitch remotely? So, a very actionable kind of advice. Excuse me, just
Yeah,
my charger.
it's a it's a new experience. So that what happened when I think it was last month when we were in the middle of Techne Drifts. We're actually in the middle of the Techne Drifts, and the closing is on Saturday. But during the when the pandemic started to show, we had the canal drift, and it wasn't really the problem with the pandemic, rather than the weather was bad, and we want we're concerned about the safety of everyone, our team and everyone else. So we said, oh, let's do it virtual. And
Mm-hmm.
the startup said, how can we pitch virtually? It's we want to. There are judges, and so we did a lot. We do until now. We do a lot of rehearsals, and we get the people online to see how you can share your screen, keep your video beside the
Mm-hmm.
screen, and practice that. And it's pretty much the same, but you have another challenge, which is technology and internet stability, which is the main thing. But
Mm-hmm.
what I would say is you have to practice, not seeing the judges in front of you, not seeing your investors in front of you. But we've been doing it a long time ago. We've been pitching, everyone's pitching their ideas, not only startups. When you're discussing anything, you're in a pitch. And most of that time you are connecting with people overseas, and it's not a face-to-face thing. So it's actually transitioning some of the activities that we were doing, but in a different way. But it needs practice. You just need to practice.
Right, right. Another question we got from Karim, his name is Karim. He was asking how should they address pivoting? Because now everyone is talking about pivoting, right? But how do they know, how to tackle it?
So it's not a one size fits all solution. But what I
Mhm.
would say is that it depends on several things. Number one, what stage are you at? I mean, if you're still in an idea stage, it will be totally different than when you're early stage or growth. This is one thing, and then the industry is the other thing. And in both parts, specifically the stage, are you pre-revenue or are you post-revenue? This, you have to know where you're at. This is the first thing. So, for example, if you're in an idea stage for a startup that was definitely working in tourism or travel, then for sure, you need to change that idea or put a hold on that because it's very hard. It's not a pivot. You're still too early. But if you're in an early stage venture and you are in an industry that got affected, then you need to see what kind of pivot you need to do. And pivoting completely, it again, like I said, if the pivot that you're going to do, number one question is that you ask how much time and energy and resources is this going to consume. And if it's something big, then you need to see, is this sustainable? Once you do the pivot, is this something that's going to continue post pandemic, or is just a temp thing? It's a quick win. So if it's a small consumption of your resources and it's a quick win, you can still do that as long as you are not affecting your main business. But if you don't have any business anyhow and you can keep the cash going in, then you can do that. So it really depends. It's not a one answer thing.
Right. Have you seen already startups in the Middle East or in your portfolio? Have you seen them pivoting in ways that you think are a good example?
So we haven't seen the pivot yet be realized. It's still into put into action. So we cannot say that these pivots, on paper and in brainstorming, some of them make sense, some of them don't make sense at all. But if we have to wait a little bit and see if this is actually going to materialize or not. Aside from the people who already have surges and they're doing really well, they're trying to adapt with the market's growth and trying to adapt with what's happening. But we're
Hmm.
talking about the companies that are in trouble.
Right, right. Which industries, I'm curious, which industries are you seeing, raising the demand and having a bigger opportunity?
So we're looking at number one, anyone in healthcare.
Hmm.
I'm looking at the industries in general, disregarding their startups or SMEs or big companies.
Hmm.
But there's a surge in healthcare.
Hmm.
There's a surge in foods, consumables in general, not restaurants and dining out, of course. There's a surge in e-commerce in general. There's a surge in logistics and delivery. These are the things that got affected positively from where we see. Uh, at the other end of the spectrum, we see that travel, of course, has been negatively influenced big time. Tourism, restaurants in general. I would say these agriculture, it's borderline. It depends on what you're doing. So yeah, real estate also got affected, but it's still negatively, but not as negative as the first two. So yeah, industries, it really varies. Yeah,
Right. And we're seeing, I mean, one of the industries which you work at with and one of the largest industries now, events, right? What is
absolutely.
going to happen? Are we moving to more and more online events? Do you think uh, you know, by the end of the spring or by the end of the summer, we'll be able to see some events coming back? What is your perspective?
So this is a crisis that's going to go one way or the other, inshallah, but it's going to take its time. So once this is over,
Mm.
everything else is going to happen. I mean, events are going to happen. You cannot, just not go to events and remove the physical interactions. They're going, but it's a matter of when.
Hmm.
So in the mean, and of course, the changes that are going to happen are going to be in the way that we a lot of people found out, for instance, that people working from home are more productive,
Yeah.
and they weren't most of the people are more productive and they're actually working more than they were doing at their offices,
Yeah.
specifically people who had a lot of a long time to commute back and forth, more
Yeah.
stress. So our perception to things that we were resisting are going to change. So yes, we are going to have events.
Hmm.
When, we're not sure. My optimistic view is that starting May or June, maybe June, we're going to be starting to go to work a little bit, bit by bit. Sports and physical events and large events are going to take some time, maybe towards the end of the year, until people can can actually go back.
The loan is going to come back. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Even
so
for
it depends on the time. You know, I'm optimistic. I'm saying that starting May or June, we'll start bit by bit getting there.
Mhm.
But you know, physical events and things that have big gatherings are going to have to wait until the end of the year. So we're still thinking because we have Croatia, we have Dubrovnik in May. You know, it's end of May. So if things are not going to be safe for our audience and for our team, we're going to do the event virtually, and it's going to stay. You know, we're going to try that virtually as a big event and see how it goes.
Amazing, amazing. I know that you have limited time left. I wanted just to get some of the practical questions that our entrepreneurs were
Sure.
looking for. What are the don'ts when seeking investment? When you're an entrepreneur seeking, an angel investor. What are the things that you should not do?
Well, what you should not do is just pitch your startup to every investor you see. You know, just go to pitch to everyone. You need to be specific on who is your investor. You need to know what is he interested in, what kind of industries do they does he or she invest in. This is one thing. Don't invest ideas. Never invest ideas to the investor. Investors do not invest in ideas, or at least angels do not do that. Maybe other entities can invest in ideas, like incubators, maybe, but investors don't invest in ideas. The other thing is that uh, don't just go there, go to the investor and tell him that I'm putting everything in that. You have to invest in me. Don't be realistic about what your ask is. You know, be precise about what you want from the investor, what exactly, how much money you're asking, and how much and what is this money going to be invested in, which is very important to know. I'm asking for X, for I'm giving you this, and I'm going to need that money to spend in one, two, three, and four, so that I can grow, take my startup from point A to point B. These are the main three things.
Okay, so we had a little interference, but thank you so much, Tarek. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for all your forecasts, because it gives a little bit of clarity in a moment where there's so much uncertainty, right?
Thank you, Val, for having me. And it's just my views and my personal opinion. We all need to come together to see how we can solve this. It's a time to think in a different way. It's a new thing for everyone in this whole world. So no one has the right answer, but we're trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much. As I say every time, happy quarantine. Let's make the best of this time that we spend at home. Thank you for joining the conversation and enriching it so much. Have a good evening. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much. Same to you, and thanks for everyone for watching. Thanks.
Thank you.